Hey guys, I'm really excited about this video. This is going to be epic. You know, what's amazing to me is I've only done a couple epic videos, but then I have one video of a Springfield that we dug up and it has 2 million views. I didn't think it was that epic, but that's our most watched video. I'm hoping this will surpass it. And so what I'd love for you to do is watch this video, check this out. It is so cool. And then send it to everybody you know. You know, your class reunion, everybody in your class, just send it out. We want to make this thing go viral. I'm excited. So you probably remember seeing this about a month ago. This came in, and I'll show you all the bells and whistles that came with it. But generally, it's an M1 rifle. They actually called it the T3. This is just an M1 from World War II that was converted into a sniper rifle. It's infrared light and a scope, infrared scope, mounted on a rifle. This is the trigger that turns on the light. Well, I'm going to let John go over all that. But at the end of the video, I said, I'm going to give it to somebody I know and see if they can get it working. And yes, that's where I'm going with this. We did get it working. Now, John has come over and he's going to demonstrate what he did. And for some of you, it's going to be way far into the weeds. I don't know most of what he's talking about, but it's really, really cool. Don't give up on it because at the very end, it's light outside now, but at the very end, it's going to be 6-ish. We're going to go outside when it's dark, and I'm going to use this in the dark. We're not going to shoot coyotes because we're not in Texas. We are in Philadelphia, so we'll just have to watch out for the police. It should be exciting. So that's what we have in store for you today. Hey, come and take a look at some of the other parts. Okay, most of you know a little bit of the history of this gun. These were made in World War II, and I said in the previous video, actually the Germans were the first to discover the technology behind the infrared scope. Whether we got it from them or we learned it on our own, I don't believe the Japanese had it at all. But we had this at the end of the war, too late for the war in Europe. But these were used against the Japanese in World War II in 1945. And the way they were used, because they are so heavy, this is about 20 pounds, and then the battery pack, and actually the guts inside of this is just completely gone. The battery wears out, that's the battery, that goes on your back. Actually, John demonstrates all that, but this is about 20 pounds, this is about 20 pounds, so you're talking about 40 pounds. So what they would do is they would guard the perimeter of their position. And the Japanese were notorious for sneaking into the camp at night or sending in teams that would come in and test your defenses. And they couldn't figure out how the U.S. soldiers, both Marines and Army, were able to pick them off in the complete dark. We're going to be able to demonstrate that to you in just a little bit. So this is the setup. This is the case that it all comes in. John's going to demonstrate that. This is the kind of thing that Ian McCullum would go ape over. So Ian, if you watch this video, I want to encourage you to come here and shoot this at night with me. Now, just a little bit of this. Here is a before and after. This is what it looked like before. This is the guts of the electronics, and then this is the before, and here's the after. It really reminds me of the flux capacitor, or it's the reflux inhibitor. I can't remember which it is, but it's fancy technology. So since I have no idea what I'm talking about, here's John, who is the one that spent hundreds of hours trying to get this working again and succeeded. We think it's the only one in the world that is working. So John, would you show us how to hook this up? Because all these parts, it's well beyond my pay grade. And maybe in layman's terms, just tell us how you got this working again.
Okay.
And by the way, I like your shirt.
I do too. I love it. Wear it proudly. Okay, so we've got the scope mounted on the rifle, and all the wiring is hooked up on the scope. What we need to do now is hook the wiring to the power supply. This is the unit here that holds the lead acid battery. During World War II, they used a 6-volt battery. When I converted it to an operational unit, I went to a 12-volt because that's what I needed to get the higher 20,000 volts out of the power pack. But so the batteries are in here, and this goes like this. This is the power pack here that converts what was 6-volt, which is now 12-volt, converts it to 20,000 volts, and 20,000 volts is what's needed to run this scope. Inside of this unit here originally was this. And this is the World War II unit. It has something called a vibrator right here. There are vacuum tubes in here. All of this stuff is obsolete and no longer available. And it's not possible to get this thing running again based on what's currently available.
But you can get the vibrator running
Oh,
again?
the vibrators, yes.
Okay, because we have a lot of customers who would be interested
Well,
in
okay,
that.
we can get that going.
Okay.
This unit, the base for it, this is a Bakelite base, this black base here, it's Bakelite, but this is some kind of an acrylic. And every unit that I've seen like this inside, these are cracked and broken. And even if you could find the vacuum tubes, the rectifiers and all, it's just never going to work. So I had to kind of put that aside and use modern components to basically produce the same kind of voltage. I used something called a flyback, which is the thing that produces the 20,000 volts. It's the same thing that's in a modern TV. I also used a zero voltage switch to drive that flyback. And also this thing passes the 12 volts. There's two connectors here. One is for the high voltage, the 20,000 volts, and the other is for the low voltage, the 6 volt. I had to take it from 12 volts to 6 volts because there are two things in here. The lamp that goes on top of the scope itself is got an infrared light in it. It's a light bulb, and that's a 12 volt bulb, or a 6 volt bulb, I'm sorry. And so the 6 volt has to go to that, and 6 volt also goes to the reticle. It's a little lighted reticle that has a little grain of wheat bulb in there that so you can see it in the scope. So let's hook this thing up. This, first of all, hooks in like this. So there's a connector here. Those two go together. Then this strap comes up to hold the two units in a single piece, like that. And this whole unit here can be dropped into this pouch so that the thing is portable.
It works with a backpack.
Strapped on, yeah, it's a backpack type of thing, strapped onto the soldier's back. Okay, now we're going to hook up. This is the high voltage lead right here. This goes in, sort of a bayonet style connector. Goes down and twists on.
We call that the Gazinta.
The Gazinta. This is the other Gazinta. This is for the 6 volt right here. We keep the switch off when we're putting it together like that. You can never put it together with that energized, or all kinds of bad things happen. 20,000 volts is not exactly something you want going through your fingers. This little screw here holds the stress wire, and that just keeps it so that if the rifle gets pulled, or this gets pulled, it doesn't put the stress on the high voltage and low voltage connectors. And it also grounds this right here. There we go. The scope is not like a normal rifle scope. If you look through here, you can't see daylight through it. And the reason why is because this has it's like a small television in here. The light comes in, and the light photons hit this CRT. It's a cathode ray tube in here. And there's an electron gun that shoots electrons onto a phosphorus screen back in here. And it's focused so that it sets up an image of exactly what you're pointing the scope out outside. And there are several controls on here. This one is focus for the scope. And this is a focus knob over here for the reticle, which is actually like a little dash, a little white-looking dash in the scope when you're looking through here. When this is turned on, the light bulb in here goes on, and that's what throws an infrared beam out across the battlefield. This scope is an infrared scope. It picks up that light and brings it back in here and dumps it out, and it's kind of that greenish looking light that some people have been able to see in a a normal night vision scope. This has been, when we first turned this thing on, it was amazingly clear. But right now we're just checking to make sure that everything's going to be up and running properly. So I'm going to turn this on right now, and we'll see. There we go.
So really, so the green hue that you see, that's what I when I look at night vision goggles, or actually if you play video games, you get that with the night vision. And this is the first generation of night vision. So yeah, you can see pretty clear across the parking lot. In fact, the car just pulled in, and we'll try not to shoot anybody, but so that you can see fairly clearly at night.
Yeah, that rubber really seals up the light coming in the camera. It pretty much covers the whole lens. Yeah, we asked Tom to go out and be an enemy soldier out there. Here he goes. Don't shoot. Uh-oh. He's taking aim at us. Uh-oh. This guy's dangerous.
Okay, this is the waterproof knapsack. It's like a tarry canvas. I wanted you to notice that the wires are hooked up underneath, which means this, I'm gonna put this on my back like a backpack. The bottom has the hookups, which is obvious if it's raining, the water doesn't pool in here. Water will run down and keep this relatively dry. So I'm gonna stick this on my back. It's now dark outside. We waited till 8 o'clock in the evening. I'm going to go outside and try it out in the dark and see how it works. Before I do that, I just want to reiterate, I had somebody come in and he was looking at it, and he knows a lot about these weapons, and he said, you know, the M1 Carbine wasn't really very accurate past 100 yards. It seems silly that they would have a sniper rifle that couldn't shoot very accurately past 100 yards. So I just want to reiterate, this is not a magnification kind of scope. This is not a sniper rifle that you're going to shoot somebody from 400, 500, 600 yards. It was basically a perimeter guard, and the way it was used in both the Second World War, the end of the Second World War, and also Korea. The perimeter at night, when the enemy was sneaking up, they would get within 50 yards, crawling on their stomachs. The soldiers could see them in the dark and could pick them off. Again, 15-shot clip, 50 yards away. This works out perfectly, but as a sniper rifle, it's not really a sniper rifle. It's an infrared scope. So that's the distinction. Let's go try it out in our parking lot. Come on, men, follow me. Don't be scared. Okay, so when I look through here, it's totally pitch black. It's almost like there's a black shroud. I see absolutely nothing through here. But when I pull this trigger, that turns on, I'm going to do it, but that turns on this infrared lamp. Now, what you'll notice is when I pull it, absolutely nothing happens. There's no light at all. And that tells me that the enemy can't find your position because there is no infrared light. So when I look through here, totally black, and then I push this, it lights up the area. It doesn't magnify, but I can see trees, and especially bright is anything with a reflector. Like I'm looking at a car right now, and it just lights up like a Christmas tree when there's a reflector. So if you're wearing anything or driving a vehicle, well, come check it out for yourself. So without the infrared button pushed, the first image you see is just totally black. You can't see anything. And then I push the infrared button, and this is what happens. Now that green glow, that's what surprised me a little bit, because it looks like somebody's shining a flashlight at me, but it's not. Again, if I turn off the infrared, it goes to black. Turn it back on, and you see this bright light. Believe it or not, that is the reflector on the back of a truck, actually. It's Kurt's truck, and there's a reflector on it, and it lights up like a Christmas tree. So anything, I also looked at other things like stop signs and things like that. They glow really bright with the infrared scope on. Now we have Kurt just walk through the field of view, and he's walking around out there. Now he's about 40 or 50 yards out. Let's go back to the picture of the daytime parking lot. We didn't use the same parking lot because there was a lot of lights on in the back of these buildings. But this is about over 100 yards out. We can see pretty clearly, but at night I can only see clearly out to about 40 or 50 yards. So that's important to keep in mind. Now, if I just pause the image for a minute, you can see There's woods behind him, so we deliberately picked a spot where there were no lights. There's woods behind him. You can just barely make out the tree branches and actually shrubs. And then he's walking back and forth in front of that image. Now, it is out of focus. There's a couple of things. First of all, the camera is probably out of focus. Filming through the scope is very difficult. And secondly, the scope itself is probably out of focus. The guys who use these weapons, they had to go to a class to be trained. You have to hold it with one hand and steady it on a bench or on the ground, and then adjust the scope using your left hand, assuming you're holding it in your right hand. I didn't do all that because obviously I'm a novice. It's the first time we tried it, but you get a pretty good idea of the image, a grainy image, but you can make out a person. Again, I want to point out anything reflective is going to really light up. So that was a real time machine, going back 80 years to see what this was like. I have to tell you that it was a lot better with your eye than it is trying to film through this. As you know, looking through a scope is a very complicated thing, and then to get it with a camera is even worse. So it needs some adjustments, but you can see with, or you can't see, with no infrared light, you look through here and it's just black. You turn on the infrared and it's like a spotlight. You can see the person. It helped that he had a white shirt on because that popped it open, and of course the Japanese didn't wear white for a lot of reasons, and that would be one of them. But when that light was on him, and if you move it just a little bit, he comes in and out of view. But it's first generation night vision infrared scope, and it was our pleasure, thank you John, it was our pleasure to present this to you, but without the help of John we couldn't have gotten this done. So thank you. And thank you for watching.